First of all, I want to thank Molly, Kirsten, and all the staff at ISU for coordinating all of these meetings with us and recording them and getting them posted. We really appreciate that. So you can go back and review them later if you need to. I want to thank the trade unit staff, Susan Boggs, Crystal Bigelow, and Lori Graham. They have been very instrumental in reviewing the PowerPoint presentations and making them better once I get my rough draft done and adding any information that they feel might be helpful to you. I appreciate that. Also, I want to thank the rapid response team on this presentation today. I did give them a copy of our slides and asked them if there was anything they felt needed to be added. They did a review and said, no, they thought what we were going to cover was good. Of course, we're not covering everything related to rapid response. There is a procedures manual for rapid response that we have been told will be updated and should be issued by the end of the year. And as soon as we have that from them, we will certainly pass that along to you. I did put in the chat window this morning that there is the site link to where the presentations, the recordings, and the supplemental documentation that we're providing is posted. I did provide them with the chat information from last week, so they should be posting that up soon. So just want to let you know. And I want to thank all of you for attending. So this one will not be quite as information overload as last week's. Last week's was pretty much trade in a nutshell. It had a lot of information. I shouldn't have to talk as fast this week, but we do still have 59 slides to cover, but we will be covering the petition certification process and also rapid response today. So we will get started. As soon as I can. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. Can everyone see it?
We see it great.
Okay.
Yep.
Then I guess we'll get started. Like I said, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Someone from the trade unit staff will answer any questions that they can along the way. And at the end, we will go through and make sure that we have answered everything that we can. If not, then we will put them in the Q&A when we post it later. Hopefully we can get that to you before next week. So we're going to talk about our petition certification and rapid response process today. So part of the whole process, when you have dislocated workers, they're getting laid off, they're threatened with separation. In order to be eligible to apply for trade benefits and services, they have to first be certified as those trade impacted workers by the U.S. Department of Labor, and that is done at the Office of Trade Adjustment Assistance, or DOL OTAA as we call it. If they're not part of the certified group, they cannot apply for these benefits and services. They won't be eligible. And the process of a trade certification begins by filing a petition. And that petition is basically asking that that group of workers be certified as trade impacted. Whenever you are aware of any potential layoffs, separations, threat of separation, then a petition should be filed right away. Should not wait longer than a year after that earliest date on which those workers lost their jobs with that employer. And the reason for that is because when a petition is investigated at DOL, they have like a 1-year look back period from that filing date. So if someone got laid off like a year and 1 day prior to that filing date, then they could potentially not be eligible for that trade certification. And we want to help as many of the workers as we can. There's several people who are eligible to, or that should be, or that are able to file a petition, a group of 2 or more workers from the same firm, and that did change in the new regulations that were issued, the new trade final rule last year. It used to be 3 or more, but it has been reduced to 2 or more. A certified or recognized union or a duly authorized representative of that group of workers. The employer can even file for the group of workers. A state workforce official, meaning someone at Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, or at IDES, the Department of Employment Security. A lot of those will be our rapid response team members. We also have Lori Graham, who's on the call today. She has kind of become our petition filing expert lately. If you do have questions about filing petitions, you can certainly reach out to her. She has filed a number of petitions and got a lot of certifications for us lately. So thank you, Lori, for that fine job you're doing there. And also one-stop center operators or one-stop partners, your local workforce investment areas can file petitions as well. And here is the site where you go to file a petition online. And when you do file a petition, please make sure when you're doing that, that a copy of the petition is also sent to Susan Boggs, myself, and Lori Graham. And there's a place where you can add those email addresses of where to send, that you can include us as a part of that process. There are 6 specific sections on that petition, and we'll go through those here in a minute. And then I'm going to show you a document that DOL put together that we found that has some very good pointers and stuff on it. There's section 1. It has the petitioner information, who's filing this petition. Section 2 is your attestation of the information that you're providing on the petition. Section 3 is information about the firm that is employing the group of workers. Section 4 talks about the actual group of workers that you're filing this for. Section 5, what are the trade effects of the separations? Why do you think this is affected by trade? And section 6 contains the company contact information. So we're going to walk through these sections, and then I'm going to show you a document from DOL. So here's section 1. Basically, here's the petitioner information, who's the authorized petitioner, what is their title, what type of are they a company official, are they at the American Job Center, is it 2 workers, and you would need to put both of the workers' names down. So you just provide all this information that it asks for here for each of the petitioners. In section 2, this is an attestation. These are done electronically, so it's an electronic type of a signature on this form. You can file them by paper, but the easiest way to do it is online. So this is just attesting that the information you're providing is, it's not false, you're not, that it's true and correct to the best of your ability that you know of. Section 3 is the information about the firm, the name, where's their headquarters, you have a phone number, what's their website, what kind of articles produced or services do they supply. Section 4, your group of workers, again, you're going to put the name of the firm, the address, how many workers do you think may have been separated or have been separated so far? When did the worker separations occur? You can estimate as much as possible, if you don't have the exact information. We generally like to say at least put 10 workers, but if you have a more definite number, then definitely put that in. What kind of work activities do these particular workers do that you're filing this petition for, and indicate when and if the location has closed or that it will be closing if you have that information. What are the trade effects of the separations in section 5? You just a summary of the reasons why. You can also attach right here at the bottom, you'll see I've attached additional information or supporting documents. Some things that Lori has added in the past have been newspaper articles or documents that she's received from the petitioning workers, anything that you can provide to them that can help them along with that investigation and try to get these people certified would be great. I don't know that there's a limit on the number you can attach, but the more you attach, the slower it's probably going to be to send it. But any information that you have or documentation is very helpful. It'll help the process along and speed it along. And then section 6 is your company contact information. They want us to have the names and information from 2 company officials. A lot of times, if you can get like a human resources person or someone in the legal area, someone that kind of has a lot of information about what's going on, those are helpful. Sometimes this information can be a little challenging to get, but any information you've got, you need to put that in there. We do need 2 people from the company. So I'm going to show you a document here that DOL. Find it here. Put out. So Susan Boggs was combing the internet one day on DOL's site, and she came across this document. And it looks very helpful and useful. This is an actual petition document. But what we liked about it was that for each of these sections, it has these little bubbles here that just kind of give you a little bit of helpful information about, okay, what do they want here? What's good information to include? What do they mean by things? So it goes through each particular section of it, of the petition itself. And we just thought it was very helpful, and it might be helpful for you if you ever do file a petition for a group of workers. It was kind of cool. So that will be posted along with the other documents that we have.
I also just posted a copy of it in the chat. So as you show documents, I'll go ahead and post them in the chat if people want to download them today.
Okay, cool. And then I want to show you. Gotta find it. Okay, is that it? Hard time seeing my stuff here. Is that the one? Okay, I think. Okay, this is a copy of a petition that Lori Graham recently filed at some point during this last year. So it just shows it where the information is filled out. So it's got her name, she's the petitioner of the group, and she would have signed this electronically. This copy just doesn't show that electronic signature. It has the information about the firm. So it was for Caterpillar, headquartered out of Deerfield, and what kind of article or service do they provide, the group of workers, this is the parts life cycle transformation section, and as you see here, it says the firm is not closing. At the time, there potentially were 7 workers that were going to be separated, or may have been, or would have been, or may have been. And then she's got a little description here in section 5 about the trade effects. And it says that they're shifting jobs from this particular division in Morton, Illinois to India. So obviously, that's a shift outside of the United States. So she has some information here, and I don't know if she attached any additional documentation to this one. It probably, if she had it, she would have attached it. And then here she has company contact information. So she has the human resources consultant and a manager of this transformation division. She has their contact information. This is so DOL can contact these people and get any other information that they need as a part of their investigation process. So that just kind of shows you what it looks like when it's filled out. Okay, I think I have. So when she files that and sends it to DOL, then she would have gotten this letter that says, "Dear Lori, we've recently conducted the investigation in this petition you filed on behalf of da-da-da-da," and they provide the copy of the determination for that certification. So, this is the letter she would have gotten that said, hey, here's what's happened with that. And these are not all the same employer or the same petition. I apologize for that. I just found these and I wanted to at least show you what these documents look like. So you'll know what it looks like when you do file a petition, and you'll get this kind of a letter. And so they would have sent her this certificate. So this was certified. So it was certification of eligibility. And then the certification looks like this. This is an actual certification for AT&T services in Chicago. So it gives you your petition number right here, certification number, petition number. Those are kind of they're basically the same thing when we talk about it. You'll hear people say petition number or certification number. So this is the company name. You know, this is certification regarding eligibility to apply for trade. It goes through all this legal stuff about, you know, about the trade program, da, 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 da. It says the worker group is engaged in these activities. This is what it alleged, that, you know, they were transferred to India, you know, DOL collected information, the group eligibility requirements, da, 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 da. Kind of goes through all that whole stuff. The key paragraph in this whole thing is towards the bottom is the conclusion paragraph. And it just says, you know, after careful review of the facts, I've determined, you know, that these workers at this location engaged in these activities met the worker group certification criteria under the Trade Act in accordance with da, 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 da. So this is where you'll see, and it says all workers of AT&T Services Incorporated, da, 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 who became totally or partially separated from employment on or after June 30th. This date right here, that is your impact date. That's the date of the first layoffs that are eligible for trade benefits under this certification. Through 2 years from the date of certification, that is your expiration date. And your date of certification is right here, July 21st of 2021. Those are your key dates that you need to know. As we discussed last week, you will hear us talk about those probably in most of our presentations along the way, but just wanted you to see what it looks like. And then this is Amy Chen signed this. She's the certifying officer with the Office of Trade Adjustment Assistance in Washington. So that's what a certification looks like. All of these will be posted later on our site in that link that I provided earlier in the chat. So now back to our slides. Okay, come on. My mouse cooperates here. Okay. In the slideshow. Okay, so when Lori or anybody files a petition, then DOL initiates an investigation into that petition to see if those workers could be certified as trade eligible, you know, if they met that thing. And if you go to the trade final rule with 20 CFR 618.225, that contains a list of all of the criteria that DOL reviews to see if they can make a determination that these particular workers are eligible for certification. It's a big long list, and it would take up probably 50 slides just to put them all on here. So, you know, feel free to look at those. If you guys do need a copy of the final rule, we can post it out there. In fact, I'll send that to Molly later, so we'll put it out there for you to review if you need it. There are several kind of determinations that can be received. An affirmative determination, that means that the investigation did establish that those workers did meet the eligibility criteria, and it will issue a certification like we saw. So those particular workers that are under that certification are eligible to apply for trade program and program benefits and services. There could be a negative determination or a denial. That means the investigation found some reason why they did not meet the criteria, and they will issue that denial. Those workers are still classified as dislocated workers and can be served under the WIOA program. And if there is a denial, they have rights that they can actually petition to have that looked at again. You know, they can resubmit for to make sure, like they can do another review on those. If there could be an amended determination. There's some new information that came about. An amendment is appropriate for some reason, you know, like such reasons might be they identify some ownership changes that affected that applicable firm. You know, there's some technical error in the petition filing that they have corrected. Clarifying the identification of the particular worker group, you know, or a number of other reasons why DOL may decide that an amended determination is warranted. There is a termination of certification. Now, these can be done when DOL believes there's some reason why the totals or partial separations of those people they're no longer attributable to the criteria that the certification was issued under. They will publish a notice, and there'll be an opportunity to comment on that when they do a termination. They will actually do an investigation of the termination, and then they will of the termination, and they'll issue a determination. Now, that determination issued could cover the entire worker group specified, or it could cover just a portion of that group. And this only applies to total or partial separations that occur after the termination date that's specified in that notice. And it must only take effect after that determination becomes final. We don't see too many terminations. Sometimes it'll happen, if maybe there's several petitions filed for the same group of workers or something, they may terminate one and include them in another. And then here's where you can have a reconsideration of a termination of an investigation, a denial, or termination or partial termination of a certification. So what has to happen is an application has to be submitted for reconsideration, but it can be done no later than 30 calendar days after that notice of termination or negative determination has been published in the Federal Register. So the timing is very important on that. If there has been a denial or something like that. Again, OTAA, they'll conduct an investigation, and then they'll issue a final determination based on that investigation. They'll either affirm it, reverse it, they may modify it, or they still may issue a negative determination or termination. So it just kind of is up to them on their investigation, but they do need to file an application if that is the case. So your certifying officer at DOL, OTAA, they'll issue a determination that identifies the articles as we saw and describe the worker group and state the reasons for the determination that they have made. And then what they do is they provide a copy of the determination to the petitioner, which we saw the letter to Lori Graham and the certification itself, and to the state. So they'll send it to us as well. And we get emails from DOL that tells us, oh, hey, we've got these determinations, here's what it is. They'll give us the certifications, denials, terminations, amendments, and then we will issue an email out to the local area, the state rapid response staff that are in that area of that work with that LWIA, and IDES. So with this email, what we're doing is notifying IDES staff that, hey, you need to request an affected worker list from this company. It notifies your rapid response team and the LWIAs that trade-specific rapid response needs to be provided to these affected workers when we get the affected worker list. And it also notifies the rapid response team that we need an event set up in the Illinois Employer Business System, or EBS as we call it, and any other information needs to be updated for that as well. So what happens on a petition determination, like a certification, IDES will send out their notice to their IDES regional staff. They are the ones responsible for obtaining the affected employee worker list from the company, and then they will send it to us at DCEO. And they also notify other states if there are workers that are a part of that certification, are on that affected worker list. If they reside in another state, they will notify those other states and those workers. And the IDES is responsible for sending out the individual outreach letters to every affected worker on that list. Now, what DCEO does, once we get the affected worker list from IDES, we will provide it to the LWIAs and the rapid response team members. And then that's rapid response staff will coordinate and conduct that trade rapid response workshops for those affected workers. And that's kind of a coordinated effort with the LWIA, IDES, and DCEO. So the primary parts of a determination are, of course, the petition number. Now, the petition numbers there could be multiple petition numbers, and there could be a letter suffix. We have seen petition numbers of, A through K on them, so it could be 95145, letter A for, Illinois, and B for Kentucky, and C for Indiana. So sometimes they will have multiple state petitions, and they will include a suffix, which is a letter that needs to be included as a part of that petition number, if that's the case. There's the determination, was it certified, denied, terminated, or withdrawn? And that'll be noted on the actual certification. The worker group location, and that specifically defines that physical location of those affected workers. You have your petition date. That's the date that the petition was officially received by OTAA. That'll be listed in there. What product is produced by the workers? What's the worker group affected? Does it include on-site leased workers? Generally, your on-site leased workers now are included by default, basically. They may not specifically be listed, but they are included. We found out from DOL that yes, even for all the petitions now, they are included, except for the new 2021R petitions. Those are a little different, which will be 98,000 above. This worker group affected will tell you who is eligible to apply for benefits. They have to be a part of that worker group to be able to apply. Of course, the impact date we covered, that's the earliest date the layoff can occur to be covered for benefits, and that's in that determination. And the certification decision date, of course, that's the date the petition was approved, and that's the date signed. That's at the bottom. The expiration date, it's the latest date a layoff can occur to be covered for benefits. Generally, most of them are 2 years from the certification, but there are some petitions that will have a specific expiration date, and it will be clearly defined in that petition if it's different. But it'll say either 2 years from the certification date, or it'll list a specific date. And it'll have the certifying officer, who's the one that made that determination at OTAA. So here's where you'll see your petition number and determination. Here's your petition number in red. Your determination is here. It's a certification. If it wasn't a certification, it would say like termination or denial or something like that. Your petition date is right here. Was filed on this date. Your worker group location in blue is right here. Your product is right here. They have automotive brake hoses right here. And your worker group affected, workers and former workers. And see it here. It says inclusive of teleworkers and staff workers. So your impact date, certification date, decision date, expiration date, certifying officer. So your impact date is right here. They were separated from employment on or after this date. The certification decision date is right here. It was signed in Washington on April 9th, 2021. Your expiration date, 2 years from the date of certification. And your certifying officer is Amy Chen. So understanding this certification timeline, okay? Petitions, like we said, generally cover all members of that specific worker group that are laid off generally during a 3-year period. It's usually 1 year prior to the petition filing and ending 2 years after the date of certification. Impact date, earliest date layoffs are covered. Certification date, date certified by DOL, and expiration date is generally 2 years after the day of certification, but there are exceptions to that. Just keep those in mind. And there's just an example, from that above petition, the one that I had before. Your impact date is here, so then your certification date would be here and your expiration date here. So it's kind of like a window there, just kind of a timeline to show you. So the career planner, these dates are very important for them. They must know these and keep these in mind when they're working with participants, because they need to determine if that participant is eligible under that certification. Now, to meet the deadline, the participant has to be enrolled in training or be waived from the training requirement by the enrollment deadline. The enrollment deadline is either, it can be a confusing statement, but if you think about it, it makes kind of sense. But it is the latter of the last day of the 26th week. If it's 2021R participant, it's the 8th week after the week of issuance of the certification. So that'd be the certification date of the eligibility covering the worker, or the last day of the 26th week or the 16th week for 2021R participants after the worker's most recent total qualifying separation. So the 2626 deadline is applicable to petitions up to 97,999. The 816 deadline is applicable to petitions of 98,000 plus. Just keep those in mind, and that will help you as a career planner immensely. So now we're going to switch gears to our rapid response. Is there any questions about the process for certifications and that? I've lost my chat window. There it is.
I did see a question in the chat box.
Okay.
Someone asked, is DCO still waiting or wanting petitions to be filed for service workers, even though rules reverted back to production workers? And
And
Susan did provide an answer, but
yeah,
go
Susan
ahead.
has answered, yeah. Yeah, because like Susan said, last time when we were in reversion, what happened is they went back and they looked at those petitions that had been filed, and then they were able to certify some of them once that happened. So yes, Diane, we'll do our best. You know, it's like sometimes it's a little challenging to get them done way ahead of time, but I'll certainly try to work on that. So to get them out in advance for future trainings. Okay, so we're gonna go into our rapid response process. I am definitely not a rapid response expert. I know enough to be dangerous about it. So what I have here in this material is, and I want to say that basically all of our materials we are preparing is strictly based upon our draft policy that Susan and Lori and Crystal and I have been working on feverishly for the last year or so. It's very challenging to write policy because one thing will trigger another thought about something else that's in another policy. So we have been working very hard on getting that together, getting as much information in there as we possibly can. We really hope to get these all issued out to you by the end of the year. We do have to go through a process of gaining approval from DOL for our policies, but just know that we are working on them, and everything that we're putting in here, you will see a lot of this stuff that comes straight from our policies. So it isn't anything different than what we're going to provide to you at a later date. So just know that. A lot of this rapid response information I did take from the Rapid Response Procedures Manual and some of the information from our trade final rule related to rapid response. So 20 CFR 685-300 in the trade final rule outlines the requirements for rapid response under WIOA. Actually, that's WIOA, sorry, not trade final rule. And the specific rapid response activities that must be conducted under WIOA are described in 20 CFR 682-300 through 682-370. And if you need that particular document, the WIOA regulations, let us know. We can post it out there as well for you if you want to see those. They're very numerous. WIOA does require rapid response activity in any area that's affected by disasters, mass layoffs, plant closings, or any other events where people are losing their jobs. So some of the services that are carried out as a part of rapid response include, you're going to establish a contact with the employer, the rapid response team will, and any employer representative to just kind of get that process started. Just kind of, you know, they're going to introduce themselves. They're going to say, you know, this is what we're here for. This, you know, we want to help these workers. They're going to provide information and access to any kind of employment and training activities that are available at the local level, you know, through the rapid response team in the local areas. They're going to provide any assistance, you know, to establish a labor management committee if it's desired at the company or from the workers. And they're going to provide any emergency assistance for that particular closing or layoff, relocation, or disaster that will meet the needs of those employers or the employees who may be losing their jobs or have lost their jobs. So the provision of assistance to the local community, you know, can also be provided. They're going to help develop a coordinated response. You know, they're going to work with the state economic development team and try to get whatever assistance they can. And If it's applicable, then they're going to file a trade petition, on behalf of those workers. If they get in there and through the contacts and meeting with the employer and the workers, they find that it could have trade impacts, then they'll file that trade petition. And I do have in here the WARN Act requirements. There's federal and state WARN Act requirements. So on a federal WARN, for federal reasons, it requires employers to provide a notice of 60 days in advance of any plant closing or layoff. And the notice has to be in writing. It has to be to the affected workers, to any representatives such as a labor union. They have to that's sent it to the state WARN processing unit, which is John Ray at our agency, and they have to send it to the appropriate local government unit. And this affects employers that have 100 or more full-time employees. That's who has to comply with this particular requirement. And all full-time, hourly, and salary workers are covered by this WARN Act. Now, Illinois is the same for the federal, except it applies to employers that have 75 or more full-time workers. And it covers all full-time and salaried employees also, except any of those that have worked less than 6 months in the past year. So they have to have worked at least 6 months. If you have any questions about the WARN Act, you can talk to John Ray, because I'm not an expert on that either, but he is. So here's just a little chart kind of thing about, rapid response efforts and how they're coordinated on the state level. So if the number of employees affected by this dislocation event is 25 or more, then DCEO rapid response team is responsible for initiating and coordinating that rapid response. Some of the members of the rapid response team would include the DCEO staff, rapid response team, IDS, and of course the affected OEA, and that would be considered a state event. If there's 24 or fewer full-time employees affected, then the OEA is the agency responsible for initiating and coordinating that rapid response. And the rapid response team that's required is the OEA and IDES. Now, that doesn't mean that the OEA can't reach out to our rapid response team for assistance if needed, but that would be considered a local event. Some of the procedures in the manual, there's a DCO workforce development specialist. That's basically a person in our rapid response unit. They're going to initiate and coordinate all phases of that rapid response, for any permanent layoffs, closings, or anything affecting 25 or more workers. And like I said, those will be considered statewide events. The OEAs are going to do that if it's 24 or fewer, and that's considered a local event. Now, if an employer voluntarily issues a WARN notice, then, the initiation, coordination of those rapid response events, they'll abide by that same threshold, either the 25 or more, or the 24 or less. And the same threshold applies to any trade impacted dislocation events as well. So any rapid response state level events, they're going to be led by that workforce development specialist or a rapid response team member. And the mandatory partners for these events are IDES, Department of Commerce, and the OEA. Now, they will include IDES staff, unemployment insurance, and trade as appropriate for rapid response activities if it's necessary. So for the trade events, obviously I think the major difference in the trade rapid response is the BRO has to be read in its entirety, and I believe there is a actual voiceover PowerPoint presentation now that does have that available, that can be used and has someone standing up there reading it every time. And they will also include the IDES staff because they need to provide the benefits and services for TRA, ATAA, RTAA to those trade impacted workers as well on a trade rapid response event. So here's just some sequential phases of a rapid response. You're going to have your layoff notice processing, then you're going to have the initial meeting with the company. They're going to provide the outreach meetings, and then they're going to manage the services along the way through the process of the whole rapid response and getting those workers there connected with the local area so they can get those benefits and services. And the specific procedures for each phase, they are outlined in the rapid response procedures manual. It's on the e-policy portal, under Chapter 9, and here's the site where you can find those. It is undergoing a revision, and it should be issued, a revision should be issued by the end of the year. So just keep that in mind, because there were some changes that we noted related to the new trade final rule that we have asked for correction and update in the manual. So once the trade petition is certified, then actual specific trade rapid response activities need to be provided to those trade affected workers. 20 CFR 618.816, that is the trade final rule, outlines the state's responsibilities for provision of those rapid response activity services to those trade affected workers. Paragraph B says the states must ensure that rapid response assistance and appropriate career services are made available to members of a group of workers for whom a petition has been filed. That is, upon petition filing, they have to have regular rapid response provided to them. And then paragraph E5 states, upon receipt of a copy of a certification, so once the event is certified and issued by DOL, the state must perform outreach to those potential participants, trade affected workers. They have to do the intake, and they have to do an orientation for those trade affected workers covered by that certification, so they can outline the benefits and services that may be available to them if they're eligible once they apply. So paragraph F requires that states advise each trade affected worker as soon as they possibly can after that worker has been separated or that certification's been issued, that they have to know what the qualifying requirements, procedures, deadlines for applying, and any benefits and services that they may be eligible for. And it's very important if we get into a situation where we have a petition number of 98,000 or above, because the deadlines are so much shorter, because you've got that 8 weeks from that certification of the petition for them, or 16th week after separation. That participant has to get in there and get services quickly. They also have to perform an intake for each trade rapid response worker, unless that worker doesn't want to, as soon as possible after they're separated, or after the certification's issued, and it's got to be scheduled in time for that person to meet those training deadlines. And, they have to be told about all the benefits and services that may be available to them. So here are in the trade final rule, the things that are handled by IDES, that they must provide written notice through the mail of the benefits available to them. That IDES sends out those letters to them. You may be eligible for TRA, because you worked at this location. The state has to obtain the names and addresses of all the workers that were affected. That's the affected worker list that IDES will obtain once we get the certification and we notify them. And IDES has to publish a notice of the certification in the state newspaper and any other kind of methods of communication that they have, that they can reach workers. So basically, rapid response events for trade affected workers, they're conducted the same as rapid response for any other layoffs or closings. The only exceptions are these activities specifically listed will be done at a trade rapid response that won't normally be held at a regular rapid response. IDS staff is going to present information on TRA, the Trade Readjustment Allowance, which is the income support for these workers, ATAA program, and RTAA program benefits. The rapid response coordinator of the event is going to read the BRO in its entirety, or they're going to use the video, the PowerPoint with the voiceover. And at this event, the BRO is going to be signed by the participant, and a copy of the signed document needs to be given to the worker as well, and the original copy kept in the file. For those people who are under a 2021R or a petition number 98,000, those participants would fill out also the form 004, the trade bona fide application. That is to establish their eligibility for additional TRA, and it has to be done within 210 days. You'll hear us call it the 210 form. It has to be done within 210 days of the, I believe it's the separation, now that I think about it. But that is important. So we kind of put down that, it's a good idea to do the BRO and this bona fide application at the same time for someone who is a 2021R participant. The BRO will be different based on which certification the participant is eligible under. So keep that in mind. They are out there on WorkNet under the forms, the specific BRO for the different programs. And then initial testing or enrollment meetings between those workers and the career planner should be scheduled at this event as well, because that way you can make sure that they get in there in time to get enrolled within those deadlines that they have to meet. So here is, I'm going to walk through a sample of what the BRO looks like. And this one is specifically for certifications 81,000 to 97,999. You can see WorkNet for any other applicable BRO for the participant being served based on the certification that they're being served under. So the first section just basically talks about, it talks about your unemployment insurance, what's available, basic TRA, additional TRA, and completion TRA. The next section is going to talk about your TRA cash benefits. You got to be in, what are the requirements? You got to be a member certified worker group. Separation must be due to lack of work. You have to be employed 26 weeks in the previous 52 at least $30 or more a week. You have to complete an application with IDES. You have to exhaust your regular UI. And you must at least meet one of the following criteria. You have to be enrolled in your training program within the 26th week. From separation or certification, or be waived from the trade training. So it just walks through how can you get this TRA benefit? What kind of requirements are there? The next thing talks about waivers, what kind of circumstances you can be issued a waiver. You got a health waiver is the first one here. The enrollment unavailable, like within the 60-day period. The last one, your training fund's not available under trade, like basically the state didn't have any money. We've not had any of those at this point. I mean, if they cut our funding drastically, there's always that potential, but it just talks about what are the criteria of being issued a waiver. What kind of employment case management services would you be provided? Here's all of the list of the employment case management services that have to be at least offered to every trade affected worker participant. They have to be at least offered. They don't have to necessarily be provided. They can be provided by a partner program. They don't have to be provided by the local area, but they do have to be at least offered. This one here these are the 6 criteria that have to be met if the person wants to go into training. These are the 6 criteria and kind of what has to be provided as a part of support for each of these criteria so we can approve the training. There's no suitable employment available. They would benefit from the appropriate training program. There's a reasonable expectation of employment following the completion of training. What does your LMI information say? Is there jobs available in that particular field once they complete that training? Training is reasonably available, is available in the area, or do they have to travel 100 miles to get to that training? Are they qualified? Do their test scores, do their interest, abilities and any assessments, does it show that, yeah, they should be able to take that program, or, does the training institution say, yeah, we believe they can, we've accepted them into this. They've passed all of our requirements. Is the training suitable? Is it available at a reasonable cost? Is this training and a cost is, $80,000, or is there another one closer that might cost us $30,000? Just kind of things to consider. What kind of costs are involved? Is it reasonable? Under some of the trade programs, you can't do it in 2021R, adversely affected incumbent workers. So if someone is threatened with a layoff, they can actually still be served under trade. So this is the information about, if you're an incumbent worker and you're threatened with layoff, this is kind of a potential thing that you could be eligible for. Here's like additional training requirements, full-time versus part-time, attendance, you have to attend and you have to document your attending. Here's the cost that can be paid for. What kind of documents do you have to provide as a participant? And then any other training fund, if there's any other information about training funds that are available to you that may be, source may be paid for by somebody else. Here are some other things here, like if you're recalled your trade employment, what can happen, warnings if you don't successfully complete, you could be, forced to repay the portion or total cost of all that training program. Here's your training benchmarks. You have to meet benchmarks every 60 days. If you meet completion TRA, there's requirements for meeting completion TRA. And then there's RTAA. So this is the wage subsidy for those workers who are 50 or older, and they find a job that is making $50,000 or less each year. They can get a wage subsidy if they want to. If they just want to go back to work, they don't want to go to training, some of that. There's an eligibility period of 2 years or up to $10,000. And we have a training session on RTAA, and we hope to have IDES help present at that later in our whole series of trainings. So be looking out for that. There is trade job search allowances available. If someone needs to do a job search out of their commuting area, that's available to them. There's relocation. If someone finds a job outside their commuting area, which commuting area in Illinois is 10 miles. So in some areas, they wouldn't have to go very far to get these services. So if they relocate, we can pay for a portion of the moving costs to move that person to their new job. They do have to have a job, though, and a bona fide offer of a job, and accepted it to get the relocation. There's also the health coverage tax credit. This is administered by IRS. It is currently set to expire as of December 31st of this year, but we believe that they may extend it. We don't know. We usually never know until right up at the end. And then the participant signs this. You are obligated to, report information to us accurately. You're not going to commit fraud. You're not falsifying any information. And basically they're signing, acknowledging that they have been given this information and they're aware of it. Because that way you have a document that says, okay, we've told you about these benefits. Now, this is information overload for someone who has recently lost their job. So you may have to go over some of this information with them again when they come in for their enrollment meeting and say, okay, here are some of the benefits. I mean, you don't have to read this in its entirety if they've already heard that, but it is a good idea to kind of go over those with them again once you meet with them. And then here's where the participant will print their name, sign it, put their social security number here. The career planner signs this page. Sorry, it was not the participant, but this says the career planner has discussed this with the participant, and then the participant signs and puts their information. There's always appeal rights on our forms that may have any kind of a determination related to them. It tells how the participant can go about appealing any kind of a determination that is made. Has the phone number and the information on how to do that. So make sure they're aware of that if they disagree with that. So a BRO for 2021R affected workers differs in some benefits and services. They're not eligible for the RTAA benefit. They are eligible for the ATAA benefit under 2021R. And your deadlines for enrollment are 8/16 instead of the 26/26. So keep that in mind. There is a different BRO based on that. And if you need a copy of any of the forms, this is where you can find them. They're all out there. They have put some resources at the top of the page, so you have to scroll down to find the forms. And they are organized by the program year of trade, and then the ones off to the right that are just listed under Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. Those are general forms that apply pretty much across all the programs. So here is our 210 form that we were talking about, the bona fide application. This is applicable for your certifications of 98,000 and above, which is your 2021R participants. It has the participant information. You're going to put your certification separation dates. Your certification number is the same as the petition number, the company name, what was the certification date, what's the participant's qualifying separation date. What is 210 days from that certification date? I believe there's a date grid out there that you can put in that was posted with the other documents from last week that you can do the calculation for this. What's the 210 days from the qualifying separation? Is there any extenuating circumstances? You know, the only ones that are available are the 45-day extenuating circumstances and equitable tolling. So, you know, if you're going to use one of those, what is the date for those, and what is the reason, justification for using that? So then you're going to put in your training information. What kind of specific training is this person requesting at this point? You know, what kind of what is the occupational category related to that training? Participant acknowledgement, you know, they understand they've met this 210 requirement. Well, they've not met the 210 requirement, you know, or extenuating circumstances, not eligible for additional TRA payments. So they have to mark one of those boxes and sign it, and the career planner signs this. It's not difficult. It's just some information, and it's required per the trade final rule and the new 2021R program. Actually, it's 2021R program that requires this for any trade affected worker that is eligible under a 98,000 plus petition. So here's the DCO Trade Contacts. You know, Susan, myself, Crystal, and Lori. Crystal works with the trade grants. Lori is manpower planner. She is the backup state merit staff to Susan and I, if necessary. Lori's a great resource for filing petitions. She's also a great resource for IWDS entries and case management type of activities. She does work, does do some case management activities in the local area in 15, in that Peoria area. So she's a great resource. We rely on her a lot for that. Crystal is awesome at the grants. We have any grant issues, we always talk to Crystal. Lori and I both have state issued cell phones, and there's our numbers, so feel free to call us. The best way to reach all of us is through email, because that way we have a record of any information that we've provided to anyone that may be useful to someone else that we can pass along if we need to. So feel free to reach out to us. Here's the IDES trade unit contacts. There's their emails, and then there's their main phone number that they have. I know they are extremely swamped with phone calls these days. So probably best if you email them as well for any information that you need regarding TRA or ATAA, RTAA. If you do communicate with them on some of those topics, you may want to include Susan and myself, just so we are aware of it. And if there's any information we can provide to assist with that, we can. Here's our upcoming trainings that are left. There's still a lot. Next week, we will cover the eligibility, enrollment, agent liable, and we'll go over the 2021R program differences again, just because some of them relate to the eligibility and the enrollment. November 4th, we're going to cover waivers and completion of the waiver form. The November 4th ones should not last very long, so be hopeful of that. That one should not be the full 2 hours. November 18th, when we cover training, that one will be it will probably take the entire 2 hours for that, because there's a lot to cover under training. December 2nd, we're going to do attendance, benchmarks, breaks in training, and filling out the training attendance form. December 9th, we're going to cover the ATAA, RTAA. We're also covering, and I didn't put it in here, but we're going to do job search and reload at that one as well. And we have communicated, we got some confirmation back from IDES today that they think they can actually present on December 9th on the ATAA, RTAA program for us. So that'll be great. We'll get the experts that know about that can present to us. December 16th, we'll cover credential and measurable skills gains and exiting participants. That one should not take an extremely long time. January 6th, we're going to do the taper and GRS entries. This one is mainly geared more towards your fiscal staff, and those are responsible for your GRS entries and uploading of that quarterly taper cost in IWDS, but everyone is welcome to attend. The career planners should know this information and what's kind of required of our programs, so they can communicate with the fiscal office any kind of information related to the training costs that they are aware of and any kind of changes in the training program. So fiscal is well aware of those changes that need to be made. And January 13th is the appeals, fraud, overpayments, and monitoring for trade. And any additional training, if needed, can be scheduled. If you don't see something covered on in any of these, or if you feel like there's some additional training that needs to be held, please reach out to us and let us know, and we can develop something, and definitely present it to everyone if needed. I mean, because we're here to help and here to train you on whatever you need training on. So now we're at questions.
I just see one question in the chat at the moment, and that it is that, are there additional legal requirements to reading of the BRO? Meaning, does it need to be read from the beginning to end all at once? The question's listed in the chat. It's the last item in the chat box as well.
I see that. You know, we'll have to include that at the, let us circle back, me and Susan, and you know, see if we can find any specific reference or anything like that. And we will include that in our chat Q&A that we put out. We'll answer that question for sure.
Okay, this is Susie. I'm the one who asked the question about the reading of the BRO. There's additional legal requirements. I think, you know, I think the challenge is that how the BRO, when you're reading it to them, can be, you know, pretty challenging in regards to how to encourage these workers to engage in services. So that is why we're asking, you know, how can we best present this information to let them know that there are some really valuable resources out there to assist them with their reemployment efforts. Because I, you know, if we just read them the BRO and then expect them to go, yeah, I want to take advantage of this and come on in and sit down with a career counselor, you know, we're not seeing that here, at least in our LWIA. So it would be really nice if we could get some guidance on that.
I mean, do you think it's like, I mean, do you have an idea of why maybe that's like they're not coming in, or?
Well, the reading of the BRO doesn't, you know, I mean, it's a really technical document. And for us to be able to expect that, you know, a worker is going to really be able to digest what that all means as it's being read to them. Like I said, does it have to, that's why I'm asking, does it have to be read from beginning to end before they can ask any questions? I really think if we're able to do a read talk.
No, you wouldn't have to stand there. I mean, I know when Susan and I went to an event and we kind of read it to them, and like for each section, you know, I mean, we read it in its entirety, but like we would say, okay, and then we would kind of expand upon that particular section, you know, kind of explain it a little bit, and then maybe move on to the next one. So, I mean, that kind of gives them a little point of reference. I mean, there's nothing that says you just have to stand there and read the whole entire document and you can't ask questions or you can't expand upon anything like that. I mean, the whole key is that they have to be made aware of what services they may be eligible for, and that's what that document does contain. I mean, you could definitely stop and go, okay, so let me explain this to you. I mean, take a little longer to read it and get it across to them, but no, I would definitely, you know, explain each section to them and just kind of go through it a little bit with them. That would be very helpful to them, I'm sure, because it is information overload for, you know, someone losing their job. It's like, what?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, it's a challenge. The other thing I would ask too while I'm talking is if HCTC, the health coverage tax credit, is extended, is there any way that we could at least get somebody, IRS, to provide some additional information about that? The reason I ask is we have been working with a trade layoff for several years now, and the common question asked by these workers is, how do I get my HCTC? And so it's our understanding from IDES that that's not just a standalone benefit, that they do need to be, you know, enrolled in additional services to be able to receive that benefit. but I think, you know, just being able to provide the best customer service to these workers, that we could provide some of those details.
Yeah, and it would be great if we had those details. None of us are experts on that HCTC. I know they do have to have some sort of a letter that IDES can send them if they don't already have it, that shows now IDES is responsible for submitting to the IRS all of the people who, could potentially be eligible for that HCTC. So I don't know, I guess that's probably an electronic process they do. We have referred people to the IRS website and to the IRS because that is the agency responsible for administering that. And there have been times when we have heard from these people that, well, they didn't know what I was talking about. So, I don't know that we have anybody that we could get at the IRS that could provide any additional information. We're not aware of anyone. We could certainly try to see what we can find if there's any other documentation out there to provide to them. But it is a very unique thing, and it can be challenging sometimes for these participants to find information out about it.
Yeah.
And yes, there are requirements, but we'll certainly look into that. I'll make a note and see what we can find out about it.
Okay, I was gonna say, when HCT first came in, became available back in, what was it, like 09, 10, whenever that was. I know we had someone from, it was like a contractor of the IRS that came out and did a presentation on HCTC for us trade staff here at our office. That was valuable, so it would just be nice if we could find somebody at least.
Right. Well, we'll certainly look into it and see what we can find.
Thank you.
If we can find anything that'll be helpful to you guys and to the participants, then we're willing to find whatever we can. We'll do our best. But yeah, and Levi put a note to me and said he has a process guide for conducting trade rapid or TAA rapid response. He's going to send that to me, so we will certainly put that out there for everyone to review as an extra document. And then Carmela had a question about the 816 versus the 2626. Okay, Carmela, it relates to which particular certification that a person is eligible under. If the person is eligible under a petition number up to 97,999, they have to be either issued a waiver from training or enrolled in training by the later of the 26th week after the petition certification date or their last qualifying separation date. So it's got to be the later of either of those. If it's someone who is eligible under petition 98,000 plus, those dates has to be enrolled in training or issued a waiver from the training requirement by the 8th week after the certification date of the petition or the 16th week after their last qualifying separation, whichever is later of those. So the 816 is applicable to anyone under petition number 98,000. 2626 is for all others. I hope that helps.
Can I ask you a question? Thank you, Sheila. Can you simplify that, because I'm reading it and I'm listening to you at the same time. I'll just call you after. I'm not going to take up the time here. I'll just call you. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, you can do that.
Thank you.
Okay, and Joel Torback has a question. Didn't see anywhere you'll be covering OJT. That will be covered during the presentation on training. We will go through the different types of training at that session and some of the requirements for those. So yes. And like all the documents from today, we will be, we'll post those out there on that site, and I put the link at the top of the thing. And when we send those back out again, we can send those. Lorraine said that the IRS HGTC website explains it all pretty well. Good to know, Lorraine. Thank you. So we'll see if we can get some materials off their website and, you know, kind of provide those so you have some documents that you can give to any participants that may have questions about that particular process or that benefit that they may be eligible for. Does anybody else have any other questions?
All right, well, if that's wrapping up our questions, then I can go ahead and close us out in just a minute. Thank you so much for presenting today. I know this was a lot of good content. I'll be sending the presentation as well as all of the documents to Illinois WorkNet to be posted, as well as this recording. If anyone missed it, you can share this with your colleagues.
Yeah, and then just send me the chat and I will put it together and answer the questions, and we'll send that back out and post that as well as the Q&A. So we have that.
I'll do that.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, I hope everyone has a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for attending. See you next week.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.